We can start. Okay, cool. The mics are working.
Everything working.
Is this sounding good?
Yes. Right. Can someone give me a countdown? Clap nyana.
In 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Hello everyone. This is the SafeSpace podcast. I'm very glad for you to join us. With me today, I have Mr. Craig Wilco. He is a father, a dad coach, a best-selling South African author. He's a husband, amongst other things. He can be the one who can, explain more about what it is that he does. So for those of you who don't know, this is the Safe Space podcast. We are trying to provide a safe space for a man to basically be man, right? So Mr. Wilco, thank you so much for joining us on the Safe Space podcast. I know you are a very busy man. Thank you for making time.
Great to be here. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Wilco. So today, basically, the reason why I did this whole thing, if you guys don't know, the whole reason why Safe Space podcast exists is because I saw you at SABC and we were doing this show. It was Daily Teta, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember the points you were making. It was so profound. And from that day, I knew for a fact that I wanted to be a better, dad.
Wonderful.
So, if you will, can you tell us about what it is that you do with your organization and yes, just give us a breakdown.
Sure. Well, I mean, for many years I was a single dad and just really fell in love with being a father, but began to realize how crucial fathers are in the lives of their children. And as you know, South Africa is one of the most unfathered nations in the world. Yes. You know, the stats say that upwards of 60% of boys and girls are growing up without a present and engaged father. So my journey started with being a father. I have a son who's now 30, a daughter who's now 27. Yeah, indeed.
Oh my God, that's my
and
age.
When my son turned 18, he wrote me a letter, and the letter is the best gift I've ever received in my life. And the letter said, "Dear Dad," I didn't ask him for this. He just gave it to me. He said, "Dear Dad, I want to thank you for being my brother, my best friend, but most of all, my father." And he went on to say, "I consider myself the most fathered human on earth," he said.
Oh my God.
And then he said to me, almost prophetically, he said, "You can bring this to the rest of the unfathered world." This is my son telling me. And that sparked something. So I wrote a book called Dad, How to Be the Father Your Children Need. And which has done well in South Africa. And then I wrote another book for expectant fathers, because there's just not much material there for dads. You know? A lot of stuff for pregnant women, very little for dads that are expecting. And that's called It's a Dad.
Okay.
You know, it's a boy, it's a girl, it's a dad. You know?
It's a dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sense,
What do I do? And then I began to really look at the South African context and the fact that gender-based violence was huge in this nation, still is, sadly, and so many boys growing up without a father. So I wrote two more pieces. One was called No Excuse for Abuse, looking at gender-based violence. Why does it happen? Because no boy is born an abuser. You know, in your DNA as a man and my DNA, there's no genes that tell us to abuse. You know, it's not in us. So something goes wrong on the journey from boy to man. And so I wrote a book saying, well, why do men abuse? It's not natural. It's not normal. Masculinity is not toxic. Masculinity is a beautiful gift. But yet, why do so many men abuse? And so obviously something goes wrong on the journey from boy to man. So this book talks about that. And then I wrote a final piece called The Six-Pack of Masculine Virtues. You know, It's about, the six-pack you develop on your stomach's important. The six-pack you drink, a lot of people do. But, the most important one is the six-pack you have inside, your characters, your virtue. And then we started an organization called Father a Nation with the belief that if we can heal men and equip them to be good fathers, mentors, role models, good men, we can heal the world. And so Father a Nation has been running for over 10 years now. Okay. And we work with men throughout South Africa, teaching, training, equipping, inspiring, networking men to be good mentors, fathers, role models, just good men. Okay. And that's basically what we're all about.
Wow, that's good. It's like a lot. Okay, you mentioned something, and it's something that I read somewhere where you said upwards of 60% of children are fatherless, and I read something somewhere where it says 60% of birth certificates do not have their fathers' names in South Africa. So what do you think could be the reason for that? Is it a thing of the mother needs the grant, or is it a thing of the father is not there? And
Look, we live in a country that has a very broken past. Hey? We had migrant labor, single-sex hostels. We had all kinds of policies which divided families. And that is not fixed overnight. That starts a generational train which needs to be broken. So if you look at our past, and we're reaping the whirlwind of that now, with broken families. We do a lot of work in Alexander, for instance. Alex, in the Nobutle hostel and the Madala hostel. And those were single-sex hostels. So men used to come from rural areas, live there for 50 weeks of the year. They would have children back in the village, and then they would have another girlfriend there. And so already there was this pattern of broken families. You've also got the issue of unemployment. Many men are unemployed, battling to find work through no fault of their own. You go to many communities in South Africa, you see men lining the streets, unemployed. They want work, but there isn't any work. And economic impoverishment emasculates a man. He feels useless. He feels like he cannot provide. He wants to provide, he cannot. So if he has a child and he feels like he cannot provide, often he's ashamed, and he feels like he cannot be a father, cannot be a provider, so he runs away. You also get toxicity amongst female moms, that would berate and the guy, he feels like useless, he's ashamed, and so he runs away. Of course, you do get some people getting babies for the grants, so there are multitudes of reasons why we have a situation where there's we're unfathered nation.
My God, because now you mentioned something about mothers that are being toxic. I'm actually going through that, and I'm in no way trying to bash my baby mama, but I feel like ladies also have a part to play in this. And then if we are going to be present as fathers, there has to be a dialogue. We have to find common ground. In my case, she's been single, the whole time. I only knew about the kid when he was 2, and it's been a rocky ride. And I feel like for me to start the healing, I also have to accept that I did hurt her. I did. She's probably the only girl I've hurt in my life. I stand to be corrected. My exes can say. But listening to your talks, especially at SABC, and going through your Father a Nation pamphlet and the website, it sort of taught me that, okay, in as much as I might be traumatized from my past as a black kid in South Africa growing up without a father, where I grew up, it was a bit weird. It was okay for people to not have fathers. It was
the norm.
It was normal, and growing up, I could see the pattern. But I'm glad to say that hopefully things are going to be changing. So what advice would you give to a guy who is going through a similar situation like myself, instead of exhibiting these toxic traits that are most likely going to push the mom away?
Look, whatever we have been through as men, and every one of us has been through woundedness and stuff and disappointments, some way more than others. We need to step up and stand up and take responsibility. So any man who is a father, who's had a child, needs to say, well, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be a father to that child. Now, I know that some mothers make it very difficult. Some mothers alienate the father. They call it parental alienation. Some mothers do the very best to keep the father away. Some mothers poison the father to the kid. They tell lies about the kid. Some others get restraining orders based on false claims. So you do get that. But the responsibility of every man is to say, you know what, I'm going to take responsibility for the fact that I impregnated this woman. She now has a child which is mine. I'm going to do everything it takes. So fight for the right to spend time with your kid. Whatever you can do to provide. Self-sacrifice. Bring money to the child. Play your role. Do your bit. Be a loving, caring father. When two parents are alienated, you know, what's that African proverb? You know, when the elephants fight, the grass suffers, you know. When two parents fight and argue and disagree, the only one that suffers is the child.
Is the child.
So it's a responsibility of the mother and the father to say, what, this child, we brought the child into the world. It didn't ask to come here.
It didn't.
We are responsible for that child. We are responsible to act as mature adults and make things work for the child. Even if we're not together, we're not going to fight. We're not going to alienate each other. This child needs a father and this child needs a mother. So we as adult human beings are going to be mature and do whatever we possibly can to make sure that this child has a father and a mother engaged and present in their lives. When a mother or a father uses the kid as a weapon, it's a very evil thing to do. You're damaging your child for your own resentment. So, you know, parents, moms and dads need to be mature adults and put the child first. Simple as that.
So, but now my thing is, how do you start the dialogue? You know, because with me, I know I was the one who sort of hurt her. And I feel like the whole point of this show is to say that, okay, in as much as we are men, there's a lot that's happening to us. I don't want us to also victimize ourselves. And then at the same time, we also have to be accountable. So now, in my example, do I go back now and apologize, or how would I approach that?
Absolutely. If you did wrong, apologize for that, you know. I mean, as men, we need to apologize for where we mess up, be vulnerable and honest and open, and do our best to reconcile, to make right, and then do our best to spend time, quality time with the child, and do our best to provide whatever resources we can. Now, if a guy's unemployed and he's doing his very best and he can't, I mean, that's, you know, you can't blame that guy. He's doing his best. But if he does have any income, any money, you know, he needs to do his bit. But in terms of, as a man, you take responsibility for your actions. You know, if you hurt somebody, you apologize and you make right. If you've had a child, you do whatever you can to spend time with that child. Now, sometimes it's very difficult. Sometimes the mother refuses. Sometimes they block you. Sometimes the family blocks you, you know. And in which case, you know, you do whatever you can to have access to that child and be the father to that child. I was the divorced father and, you know, also had difficulties. It wasn't a very easy divorce, but and for a while my kids, I was apart from them, you know. But what I would do is every single day phone them, every single day put WhatsApp, FaceTime, every single day reach out and let them know that I'm there, I'm their dad. Whatever they need, they can call me anytime, you know. And then whenever I did, every second week have access, I spent quality time with them to the point where they actually came to live with me and I was their dad. So do whatever it takes, man. Make right, apologize, you know, and be a presence in your child's life.
Okay. I don't know if this happens any other place in the world, but usually you find a situation whereby if the mother chooses you, the actual father, you are unemployed. In her head, you are useless. And then there's the other guy who can, you know, provide, give her everything. And the child has already been introduced, and it's a bit, complicated.
Yes.
How would one go about that situation?
Well, once again, you need to do whatever it takes. You know, we need to swallow our egos, swallow our pride. One of the things I must say to men is that your job doesn't make you a man. Your possessions don't make you a man. Your car doesn't make you a man. You know, what makes you a man is your character. It's how you live and work and stand up in adversity and what you do when the chips are down. So even as an unemployed man, you can have a tremendous sense of self-esteem, a tremendous sense of pride and integrity, because even though you don't have the money, you have the character and you have the integrity and you have the value system that says, I'm going to step up and stand up and be the man and do whatever I possibly can. You know, what happens to a lot of us men is we feel useless, so we start withdrawing into all kinds of addictions. You know, we start watching porn, we start drinking too much, we start doing all these things. You know, and you know, it's an anesthetic. That's all it is. You know, it's an escape. It's a drug, and those things make us fall even further into a state of low self-esteem. But if we say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to drink too much. I'm not going to watch porn. I'm not going to sleep around and mess. You know, I'm a man and I have integrity and I have values. And no matter how tough my circumstances are, I'm going to stand up and take responsibility as much as I possibly can. You know, it starts with a self-esteem. It starts with a self-value. Because if you don't have that, you have nothing. You know, if you don't value yourself, you know, your life becomes meaningless to yourself. And so value yourself and realize that you are very, very important in that child's life. And so fight for the child. Do whatever you can. Not to destroy others, not to downplay the baby mama, not to do anything, but to be present in your child's life.
Oh, Mr. Wilco, you've said such a mouthful, but I like a point that you made when you started. You mentioned the whole labor, when we started to become civilized and people had to move. What role does that play in a child's life, and how likely is a child that grows from those circumstances? How likely are they to actually become to be good contributing members of society, as opposed to someone who had both of their parents in their lives?
Look, without a doubt, the ideal is to have a present mother and a present father in the house. Equally important, equally valuable. But that's not always possible. So when a dad is working on the mine and he's only able to go home every once a year, there are two things that need to happen. The village needs to come into play. So when a boy is growing up without a father, there are uncles, there are elders, there are coaches, there are teachers, there are brothers, grandfathers. Men need to step up and play that role. So a boy can grow up without a present father, but he can still grow up to be an excellent man because they're role models in the community that he looks up to, that he interacts with, that he sees. The other thing is that a father can do, even if he's not there, economic circumstances have taken him away, he can still be in touch. I mean, cell phones, everyone has them now.
Yeah.
Most companies have some Wi-Fi that, if you're working, you can have access, you can WhatsApp, So the key is, as often as you possibly can, communicate with the child. Input into their lives. Send them a video clip, send them a voicemail, whatever the case may be. Say, this is your dad. I love you. I'm thinking about you. I'm available. If you have any issues, please, because what that does is it shows the child that you're not there because of them. You're not there because you are there, you're providing, but you're still there. You still think about them, pray for them. You're still emotionally available,
Definitely.
So those two things can play a massive role. The father reaching out even though he's not physically present, and other men in the community. And that's why I often counsel single moms. Single moms do an incredibly amazing job. How many men have grown up in South Africa and their role model is their mother? I mean, you got to take your hats off to those single moms. But what those single moms must do is find good men to input into their children's lives. And it's difficult for them because sometimes they've been abandoned by a man, they've been abused by a man, they've seen men behaving badly, But for them to become intentional about finding other men in the community that can be role models. And even sometimes that means going to a church and a pastor. Even there you've got to be careful, man. Some of those pastors.
Yeah.
But, finding things like Boy Scouts or, coaching, soccer coaches. There are good men in this country, all over. And finding those men who can be mentors to your... You see, I, as a father, I can teach my daughter pretty much everything. The one thing I cannot teach her is how to be a woman.
Yeah.
A mother can teach her son pretty much anything, but the one thing she cannot teach him is how to be a man.
Exactly.
A man needs to do that. And so we need good men, good role models, good mentors in society to raise and input into boys' and girls' lives.
Okay. Wow. There's so many questions in my head. I just have to choose one. So being someone who was raised by a single mother, God rest her soul, now that I grow older, I start to realize my mom had, boyfriends and stuff, and, I knew all of them. It was a bit weird, and to tell you the truth, the more I grow up, I understand that sometimes it's something that she had to do, for some people, especially where I grew up, you don't have a job, you're only on grant. Sometimes you just have to, get yourself a man. I don't know, it's not our place as men, but how would you, if you had a daughter who was going through the same thing, how would you sort of take them out from that and sort of guide them towards, or does the mother have to be there also?
Look, you're describing very complicated situations, and there are many like that where, I've heard stories, horror stories, and we've dealt with kids like this who the mother is poverty-stricken. She has a small grant. She has a boyfriend who is an earner, and sometimes he moves into the house, and I mean, in the one case in Bopulong, every time the boyfriend came to visit on the weekend, they kicked the kids out of the house, and the mother was, you know, desperate financially, so she, you know, so she was almost subject to this boy. Terrible situation. You know, I mean, a mother should never ever do that, and it's very easy for us to judge because a mother who's in a situation with no money, it's difficult. But a mother and a father should always put their children first above anything else. To a young boy, a young girl in a household where there's a boyfriend and the boyfriend's not treating them very well, or he's not treating the mother very well, it's a very difficult situation. And that's why we need a village. You need a network of good people. So that child needs to have someone they can go to, an auntie, an uncle, the community policing forum, you know. So the more access we have in community to good people, you know, Ubuntu's made people survive when they couldn't otherwise have survived. You know? I mean, you have no meal, you go to your neighbor's surprised. But the same thing needs to happen with parenting. So when you've got a child in a very bad situation, a mother who's maybe being irresponsible, maybe drinking with a boyfriend, and the kids are being neglected, you know, those kids need to have neighbors and other people in the community to go to. The problem with a child when they grow up in a dysfunctional household is they see that as the norm, and that becomes the norm. So as a nation, as a society, we need to abolish and bring down those false values and create an idea of what a good family is, what a good mother is, what a good father is, what's not acceptable behavior, so that we empower our communities and people who are in dysfunctional situations to have someone to reach out to say this is not okay, you know.
Mr. Walker, so Father a Nation, one of the key values it has is this gender-based violence, and as men we have to do the right thing because it's us that are doing these, you know, atrocious things. Regarding that, do you think the background of someone, so say for example, if my dad, I grew up in a household where my dad was beating my mom, and you find stories where it's like you have to beat your woman because she has to, you know, respect you, same way you have to beat your children because they have to respect you. These are just things that really don't make sense and they don't really work, but they've been passed down for so long, and it's too hard for us to break out of that. Do you think that sort of plays a role?
Oh, it very much does. And that's why every man's responsibility is to break the cycle, to look back and say, what was wrong in my ancestry? What was wrong in my household? What's wrong in my community? Let me fix it. Let me be the man that says no more and breaks the cycle. And that's the mandate that every man has. So whether there was racism, alcoholism, abuse, whatever the case, in your you stop it with me. It stops with me. And we can step up and stand up and say, as man, I'm not going to allow that to happen. You know, it happened in the past. It's not going to happen in the future. It's not going to happen in my kid. Unfortunately, a lot of men perpetuate what was bad in the past, you know. They got beaten by their dad, they beat their kids, you know. They saw their mom getting beaten up, so they beat their wife, you know. And let's be honest, we often blame culture, falsely. Like, you know, you take lobola, you know. Lobola is not about ownership.
It's not.
It's not. You know, culturally, traditionally, it's not about ownership. It's about one family uniting with another family. It's about a man paying his respect. It's about a man displaying the fact that he can take responsibility. I mean, it's a positive thing. But you get a lot of men who have a misconception. And they say, I paid, you know, she's mine. You know, and that's a completely So we should stop blaming culture, and we should start misrepresenting culture and start saying, as man, you know, you see, the bottom line with masculinity is the more power you have, the more responsibility you have. Power is a sacred responsibility. So a politician who's been voted in has a sacred responsibility to serve the people who voted him in. Often they don't. Often they abuse that. They take, they steal, you know, and it's a misuse of power. A man who's involved with a woman has a sacred responsibility to be a safe space for her, to protect her. That's his. Now, if he abuses her, it's an absolute violation of that trust and that. So we've got to stop blaming. We've got to stop misquoting, misusing culture. People use religion, you know. The man is the head of I'm a Christian. What people fail to realize, you know, they often say, you know, the man is the head of the household. Fine, but it goes on to say, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave his life up for her. So he's saying, don't dominate, don't control, give your life up, serve, you know. So we misquote culture, we misquote scripture, for our own purposes. But we have to break the cycle, you know. We have to break the negative things we see in our families, in our brothers, in our fathers, you know, and start living well.
Living in a society where men are told, men don't cry, but it's the first thing that you do when you come to this world. Would you advise a guy to cry?
Absolutely. Look, I mean, we were having a conversation before the podcast, and for me, there are two faces that every man needs to wear. The one face is the warrior face. I'm a warrior. I'm a fighter. I'm fighting for what's right, for what's good. I'm fighting for my family. And when I'm in warrior mode, shit's going to happen. Things are going to get tough. That's when I don't cry. That's when I step up, stand up, I take it on the chin, I just push through, you know. But that's only one side of masculinity. The other side is the lover side. And that's when you do cry. That's when you are able to be vulnerable. That's when you're loving and caring and nurturing, you know. Like my daughter, for instance, I mean, today is Valentine's Day. She's overseas. I get a message from her, WhatsApp. She says, "Dear Dad, happy Valentine's Day to my first and forever Valentine." It's my daughter. You know?
Wow.
Love you, Pops. This is her message. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes. But, you know, we have a beautiful, beautiful romantic relationship in a loving, caring, pure way. And that's the role that we need to play as fathers. So there's a time when we need to be sensitive. We need to be able to cry. I mean, I've watched movies with my daughter where we both cried because it's a movie where it's tear jerking, and she sees me crying in a beautiful way. You know, if she sees me crying because I'm just I had too much to drink or something, that's not a good way. So kids need to see men as strong, tough rocks, but also human beings who can cry, who can be nurturing and vulnerable. And if they see you as that, man, that's what men are. If they're just soft and and a lot of people are saying we need to feminize men, and we never need to feminize men. No, men are not women. Women are not men. We're both beautiful in our own right. So we mustn't feminize men to the point where they can't make decisions, and not that women can't make decisions, but what I'm saying is we're telling men to not have spines, not to stand up. We mustn't do that. We mustn't also over masculinize men. Hyper masculinity, the Andrew Tate type thing. How many chicks have you got? How much cars have you got? I mean, that's a hyper false macho masculinity. Strong, resolute, stoic man, but soft, caring, loving, gentle. Both of them must be contained in every man.
So where do you think that toxicity comes from? Because now, in my case, I know for a fact that growing up, we got a lot of our information, particularly regarding girls, from porn or from other equally toxic guys. And where do we draw the line, and how do I say to my friend, that's not how you approach a girl, that's not how, because to us, I feel like it's a competition,
Well, it often is. You see, these are, so many men are actually just boys in men's bodies. They haven't been taught to be a man. And a man, when he grows up, has strength, and he needs to be taught that strength is a sacred responsibility to be used well. Never to dominate, never to take what's not yours. And a woman is someone that needs to be treated with respect and care and love. Let's be honest, women can be toxic too. Women can be vicious. Mostly women are vicious with their tongues. Men are vicious with their penises and their hands. Let's be honest. And if you've come across a toxic woman, just walk away. Don't fight. Don't fight back. If you come across a woman and you really desire her and you ask her for a date and she says no, accept no. No is no. I don't have any right. She doesn't want me there in the space. So consent is an absolutely crucial issue. But we grow up with lies about masculinity. And there are two things that make men toxic. Two major things. One is he's wounded. He's unvalidated. You talked about growing up with a father who was there but not there. I had exactly the same thing. I had a younger brother who committed suicide. We grew up in a household with a dad that was there but not there, not emotionally there at all. I remember jumping on his lap when I was 10 years old, about 10, and wanting to hug him, and he said, no, boys don't do that. So there was that kind of sense of pushing away, not emotionally engaged and attached. And so we grow up wounded, not validated.
Exactly.
And we cry out for our father's validation, because every boy needs the validation of an older man.
It
They
does.
cry out for it, And often boys that are posturing and competing are saying, look at me, I'm tough, They want validation. Why do boys join gangs? They join gangs to belong to a family, because they don't have a family of their own. They join gangs that has a leader, because they don't have a leader of their own, which is a father, So wounded masculinity is masculinity that feels inadequate, that needs to be validated, that needs to prove itself, and that's a wound. A truly whole man doesn't need to prove himself. He knows, I'm a man,
Exactly.
I don't have to act the man. I don't have to drive a car, a lot of men buy cars they can't afford. Why? To pose,
Exactly.
A lot of men lie, and they talk about their sexual conquest. They're lying. Why? Because they're trying to prove that they're the man,
Exactly.
So wounded men behave badly. And the second thing that makes men toxic is lies about masculinity. And there are 4 big lies: sex, power, money. Big boys don't cry. We grew up
Exactly.
thinking, to be the man, I've got to have lots of sexual partners. The more chicks I have, the more of a man I am. What a lie,
Yeah, it's a lie.
The reality is, if you can be loyal and faithful to one woman, that's a man. If you're able to control your penis, that's a man. No, seriously. I mean, if you see a woman and she's drunk and she's married or whatever, and she's coming on to you, a real man, a true man can say, sorry, this is not appropriate, That's power. And then we believe that, a man has to have power and money, The car you drive defines you. The clothes you wear define you. The woman on your arm defines you. These are all lies about masculinity. So a wounded man believing these lies is going to behave very badly, because he needs to prove that he's a masculine. And the other big lie about masculine, of course, is big boys don't cry. We can't be vulnerable. We can't share our weaknesses, because, and that's why one of the reasons men commit suicide 4 times more than women, because they carry their burdens,
Oh my God. And I saw that it became apparent during COVID, like a lot of guys committed suicide. And suicide is a bit of a touchy topic for me, because one of my friends not so long ago, I think it was December, he committed suicide. And now when I think about it, my friend was always bubbly. After we completed high school, I consider myself very lucky, because I'm still friends with all of my friends. We completed high school, this guy would come, we would, drink every bottle you can think of. And be like, where do you get this money? Be like, I drink. And then you find out this guy has killed himself, and he didn't even leave a note.
Sure.
And it's a bit weird. And we are burying a lot of our peers, especially the youth. I just came from a funeral of one of my other friends from school. He got struck by lightning, and it's like, dude. So one of the reasons why I feel so passionate about this show is that, one, I feel like I don't have enough time here. I have a lot of work, and I have to, do it as much as I can. So closing points, don't know if I've asked this before, but what would you say to someone who's going through a situation that requires, so a single father, for example, I've never been a single father, but how did you go through that, and what are the things that sort of, pushed you from behind instead of stand in front of you?
Put your children first. I mean, we brought them in the world. We're responsible for them. I tell you, I had an experience with my daughter when she was 2.5 years old. Doctors said to us that she'd need surgery on her heart, because she had a small hole in one of the walls of her heart. Not life-threatening, but it needed to be fixed. And luckily, with technology, it's amazing. Instead of cutting open the open heart, they now put a device into the vein, and it pops in and it seals up. It's amazing.
Wow.
But when the day came for surgery, she was obviously very scared, and I was also very tense. And I asked the surgeon, I said, please, can I carry her into the theatre, just to comfort her? Go in with her, your daddy. Because, I mean, it's scary, those theatres, the lights and the nurses, and and they let me do that. He was very kind. So I had to scrub up and mask up and whatever. But they allowed me to carry her into the theatre, and they even allowed me to hold her when they put the mask on her face. So she fell asleep in my arms. I handed her over, and operation was a great success. I was there when she came around. 1 month later, we were at my house having a bit of a gathering with all these people, and some friends were around, and she was standing next to me in the grass. We were having a braai outside. And one of my friends looked at her and said, Blythe, I believe you were in hospital, And she looked up and said, yes. She said, my heart was broken. She She said, but my daddy fixed it. I tell you, it was such a moment for me, man. I had to excuse myself because I had tears in my eyes. But it gave me the gift of seeing myself through her eyes. And I saw and I realized I did hold her heart in my hands, even though I wasn't the doctor. And how I pitched up as a father would have a huge impact on her life. And how I pitched up for my son would have a huge impact. And I resolved, I said, no matter what happens, no matter what it takes, I'm going to be there for them, So we need to just make commitments as a father. Single dad or not, I am putting my kid first. Instead of that flat screen TV, I'm going to put that money towards whatever she needs, Instead of hanging out at the pub with my mates, I'm going to hang out with my kid, You put them first. And that's what it takes to be a dad. The most important words in a dad's dictionary are the words be there.
Be there.
Be there, man. Be there. Definitely. Even if you can't be there physically, be there emotionally. Be there via WhatsApp. Just be there.
My God, that's really profound. Thank you so much, Mr. You actually cleared that out. You're not actually Wilco.
No, Craig Wilkinson.
Wilkinson.
Yeah. Wilco's the brand name.
Yeah, but Wilco sounds way cooler. So for people who want to connect with you, people want to be a part of the Father Nation, the six-pack of values for men, how do they do that?
Well, there's so much to be found at the website, fatheranation.co.za.
Okay.
And welcome to email me personally, craig@fatheranation.co.za.
Definitely, not a lot of people do that. They give out their information. Thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we can, we don't have a lot of time, but maybe we can come another time and then we can dive into other topics. Yes, thank you so much.
Great pleasure, man.
Yes,
keep up the great work.
Same to you, sir. Thank you so much. You're doing a lot of good work.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Cheers.
Good. Yes, thank you so much.